Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Late Night Table Talk. My name's Eric Yurko. I'm going to be your host, and it's actually dark out, so let's get started. Joining me tonight is going to be Beneeta Kaur, formerly of Girls Game Shelf, talk a little bit more about what she's up to. But before we get to that, as always, there are a few things I'd love to talk to you all about. So, first things first, welcome back to another episode of our first season. We had sort of a pre-season a little while back, and we're kind of rolling with it now and seeing where that gets us. I really appreciate you all taking the time to watch it, especially if you watch the whole thing. These things are long, but hopefully it's filled with enough stuff that you're consistently interested. As always, if there are people you'd like to see on the show, leave a comment, let me know, and we'll see what we can make happen. So, the thing I want to talk to you all tonight about, and I was thinking about this because every so often my monologue topics are a little bit like, what am I feeling today? So, I want to talk a little about remote play. So, we're still kind of in the throes of pandemic. The county that I'm in is still under a pretty strict lockdown for a while. I have no doubt that it's going to continue for a little while past the currently estimated end date. So we've been talking about playing a lot of board games online. I know I covered this a little bit earlier in the preseason, but I wanted to revisit it now that I've had a chance to think a little bit more about it and talk a little bit to other folks about how they're playing and what they're playing. So there are a bunch of different ways to play a board game remotely. So one way that we'll talk about is simply just, like, I have an overhead camera set up over there. You play it, and either the people who are watching tell you what to do with their pieces, or you collaborate with another person via a copy of the game. There's also online play that's facilitated via any number of services. So we've got like Board Game Arena, Yucata, Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, and then there's the traditional like board game app that you play remotely via an actual like video game implementation of the board game. They're all interesting, they've got pros and cons. I just wanted to chat a little bit about them and just sort of my experiences with them. So going back to remote play, just sort of having the copy of the board game and then everyone sort of tells you what to do with it. I started doing that a little bit at the very beginning of pandemic. That worked pretty well for mostly like roll and write games. So I think this mainly happened a lot with Floor Plan, was the one that we kept going back to, because you could roll the dice, show someone else the dice, and then they could take their actions on their board without necessarily affecting your actions on your board. That was actually pretty good. There are certain types of games that work better for that. So typically games where either players have their own individual boards they can write on, so a lot of roll and writes work well here, or information is completely open so that players can all see what everyone else is doing. You could probably play chess this way, although there are so many online implementations of chess that you would be hard-pressed to find a way that's, less convenient than doing it sort of like this. Places where this doesn't really work are places where you have sort of secret information. So I was using for a while these wooden sort of card holders. I would put them in front of a webcam and I would just show somebody what cards they had, and that kind of worked. We played Cloud City that way. It's just a lot of extra effort. And we struggled a bit with some of the like escape room games as well, because since the other players couldn't have their own tactile copies of the puzzle, they were struggling a bit for it to be sort of still interesting to them. There are some that work better than others, but it's a little bit more hit and miss. So if that's the way that you're thinking about doing it, it can work. Just be careful with hiccups and sort of roadblocks that are going to come up in the process. One improvement you can make to this is often if each player has their own copy of the game, it becomes significantly easier to administrate these sorts of things. So, for instance, Cubitos, I played with a friend online. She had her own copy of the game, I had my copy of the game, and it meant that we could each roll our individual dice, and all we needed was to keep an eye on the board so that we could maintain consistency between rounds. We did the same thing with Sonora from Pandasaurus. And even, like, a lot of deck builders will work well for this. So, like, I just got in Dale of Merchants 3, right? Very excited about the next Adventure in the Dale of Merchants series, or Adventure Mart can probably work this way. But generally, where you have a randomized market, you only need one player to be shuffling the deck. And then when players take cards for their own decks for deck building, you can pull those cards out of your instance of the deck, and then the other player who's controlling this sort of main shuffle deck can remove those cards from the game. It allows each player to maintain their own secret hand of cards and also to have some hidden information without necessarily hurting the randomness of the game too much, which I think is pretty cool. I've had a little bit of success there as well. It just ends up again being kind of challenging because you're still someone has to be the core player for that, and that server player has to maintain the logistics of the entire play area. It can work, and that's kind of how you have to do for deck builders that are implemented online, but it's obviously not convenient, but we are just, doing the best that we can. So the last one that I thought was pretty interesting was I've been playing a lot of Tabletopia, some Tabletop Simulator as well, and then some things through Yukata and Board Game Arena, and those have been pretty impressive. I tried out Machi Koro for the first time there. I played Hadara on Yukata. Very fun. Really enjoyed that. And I've been sort of hopping between other games like Castles of Tuscany on Tabletopia or the Unmatched series through Tabletop Simulator. The main advantage there, if you're not familiar with those implementations, is that they so there's sort of scripted and non-scripted versions. In a non-scripted version, you sort of have all the pieces in a shared space and you can still draw cards, which is great because you can do things like I can keep my hand hidden from my opponent. In a scripted version, though, what might happen is, oh, I've placed my cards down, now I hit a button and it calculates my score for me, and it processes what I need to do next on my turn. That's very handy, especially if you're doing games with sort of complex interactions, but it is obviously more time consuming to implement. All in all, I've actually become a much bigger fan of remote play. I still obviously would prefer to play board games in person with people, especially looking at the new Burgle Bros. I'm very excited to try that. That's probably going to be a remote play with my copy of the game and some friends helping me maneuver it. But in the meantime, there's been a lot of good progress made industry-wide. So from the reviewer side, it's helpful to have access to these because even though for photography reasons I have to take pictures of the games and need the physical copy, being able to play them even with other media folks has been super helpful for getting a good sense of how it plays before you go through the photography elements and write up the full review. But yeah, if you all have been playing games remotely, I'd love to hear what sort of implementations you're using, what your favorite games are, and really what games you'd like to see come to those platforms. So add them to the comments, let me know. Like I said, I'd love to hear more about them. So let's bring on our guest tonight, Beneeta Kaur. Beneeta's star has really been on the rise lately, with her work as a contributor for Girls Game Shelf, her Twitch streaming, and her recent foray into TikTok. In her own words, she's also a foodie, so we'll see if that kind of comes up in our conversation. We are super excited to have her on Late Night Table Talk to talk about the past, present, and future of her work in the board game media space. So please join me in welcoming Beneeta Kaur to the show. Hey, Beneeta. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Just, living the dream. Currently unable to leave my room because someone built a minor blockade of board games behind me.
But what a beautiful blockade it is, though.
Yeah, it's colorful, and it's colorful in a way that I like, which I appreciate. Colorful games tend to catch my eye anyways, so I figured if you're gonna have anything as a backdrop, why not have a bunch of games that you've been playing or been interested in playing, right?
Sure, or you can have a very neutral gray and white backdrop like mine.
I'm not gonna judge anyone's background. I mean, traditionally my background is about, I want to say maybe a 60-degree pivot, and so similar, you can see most of my room, but I have, for the purposes of this conversation, kind of shifted it so it's a more, let's call it neutral setting.
I unfortunately just how my computer is set up. I can't do that, but I did put a candle out to give us some ambiance. I don't know if you can see it.
No, it's critical.
Critical ambiance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't see it when you're watching the video, I will assert that the candle's ambiance is in fact critical.
It's critical, yeah.
Yep. So what else have you been up to? Playing anything good lately?
Let's see. So I've been playing a lot of faster games. So
Mhm.
like I've been playing a lot of Quicks. That was a new game I taught to my family and friends. So that's been fun. And it's like a very simple
Mhm.
roll and write. So that's been nice. My family also really loves Istanbul, so we've been playing a lot of that. And Splendor. My mom just beats everyone at Splendor, and she really likes beating us again and again. So we've been playing a lot of that.
Hey, if that works, have you played Quinto?
No, I haven't. But I've heard good things about it, so
Oh
I
yeah,
might.
I love it. It's one of my favorite like quick and simple roll and writes. A guy named Stephen Tan taught it to me at a board game convention a few years back,
Yeah.
and it's consistently excellent. I think I got it. I imported it before Pandasaurus picked it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just very fun. I like that a lot because my dad is like I'd say maybe very lightly board game curious. Like he doesn't actually want to play board games, or at least he tells me that he doesn't actually want to play board games, but he has
Yeah.
like a electronic Yahtzee that he's worn the buttons off of.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is kind of like Yahtzee in the sense that it has dice.
My dad is the same way. Like he'll play board games with me and he likes them, but he doesn't want to admit to me that he likes board
Right,
games. But every time he's on his phone, he's playing like a version of Bejeweled.
right.
Like I don't know how many hours he has played like Bejeweled, and I'm just like, Dad, you're literally playing a board game essentially. But no, that's not a board game.
Yeah, he's
So
like, they're different.
they're different.
Yeah, my dad was like, I was talking to my dad once, and I was like, yeah, well, we used to play board games all the time growing up. He's like, no, I don't think we did. And I'm like, Dad, we owned Monopoly, Scrabble, Clue, Pit, Careers, The Game of Life, several versions of Trivial Pursuit. What do you think we did with those?
No, they're not board games. What are you
Uh,
talking about? Oh, and I did want to add, we have been playing a lot of party games because it's great for like social distancing. I'm lucky enough to have a pretty big backyard. Um, so we've been playing a lot of Blank Slate and Just One, which are
oh
like,
yeah,
yeah.
I just tried Blank Slate the other day. That's a lot of fun.
It is fun, right? It's like, you have to like do the perfect balance of like, okay, not too obvious, but not too obscure. But oh my god, am I gonna go obvious now because I think everyone else is not gonna go obvious? It's like
Well,
metagaming
you
it.
gotta keep alternating Blank Slate and Just One to really like mess with players as like overarching metagaming, right? Because you're like,
That's
okay,
true.
Just One, I
Yeah,
want to be very off in the weeds, but Blank
yeah.
Slate, I want to be very close to just one other person. So we're just gonna keep doing that until you're very confused.
I feel like my family won't like that. I feel like that's maybe not a great idea.
Maybe.
Maybe, maybe.
All right. Well, speaking of games, so whenever I have someone on the show, we play a quick game that I've been calling Game the Name for lack of a better name for the Game the Name game. No, Game the Name game. We're somewhere with this.
I
It's
think
all.
that should be the name. Name the game, game the name.
I think it might be Game the Name name.
Okay, there
That
you go.
one. I think that's. I think we're almost. We're
We're
gonna have a
almost
writers workshop it. It's gonna
there.
be
Okay,
great.
okay,
But basically, I'm gonna come up with some name for some game. I've actually already decided it in a maybe a first for late night table talk. I've actually come up with it more than just immediately on the spot,
ooh,
and we're gonna
impressive.
collaboratively come up with a like short little game design around it. It will
Okay,
be either fun or terrible, and there isn't a ton of middle ground, so we're just gonna
okay,
kind of wing it and see where it goes.
okay.
So.
Let's do it.
The name of the game that we're going to be collaboratively designing is in deference to the supreme power of ambiance, Mood Candle.
Okay. So I think the first things first is we have to decide if it's competitive or cooperative because you love cooperative games and I love competitive games.
hmm
So
I mean, it could be a game that has a competitive and a cooperative mode because I feel like if you're talking about
sure.
ambiance, the shifting ambiance of the game could have both. But I would say I tend to lean, if we're thinking like games that where ambiance is important, I tend to lean a little bit more cooperative for this play style.
I think that's fair. If you're trying to like set the mood, be like an ambiance, like that's generally what you're doing. Maybe you don't want to be in a competitive mindset. So
Mhm.
I agree with that.
Yeah, especially it seems like it might be hard to make a truly like intense game about candles.
Actually, the candle making business is very cutthroat. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm like not even kidding.
Wasn't that what John Wick was about?
Yeah, there's actually been like three movies about it. Like, it's
Yeah,
John Wick. He's in the candle making business, and like he has an Etsy shop,
right. That
and
makes
but
sense.
then like people steal his design, so then he goes out and gets revenge. That's the whole
That,
point.
as someone who hasn't seen any of the John Wick movies, I have to believe that's what those movies are about now.
It is. I wouldn't lie to you, Eric.
That seems reasonable. I mean, would
Yeah,
you really do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
of course not.
Oh, okay.
Who does that?
So we're cooperative.
Okay.
What's it going to be mechanically?
Hmm. If we're making, maybe like we're trying to decide what the candles look like. People are very into like unique candles. Maybe it can be a polyomino game. That those are very hot right now.
I
Well,
have
have been.
heard that. Candles in general are also very hot right now.
Ooh, nice one.
Thank you.
Nice one.
I'm perfecting the craft over here. Okay, so what we're thinking is like maybe a polyomino. So what we could do is if we're really leaning into it, we could have scented polyomino packs.
Yes.
Like this drives the cost of the game through the roof.
But people would pay for a scented board game? Like, this is a genius idea right here. I'm trademarking it right now, copywriting it right now.
I was gonna say it's at least two-thirds of a good idea. So you're building out polyominoes because you're
Okay,
like, all right, it's winter. We really need a pine scented candle.
sure.
It's festive, right?
Yeah.
And so then part of it's figuring out like colors, like how many wicks it's gonna have, like
Maybe also like the shape or like do we want soy candles or wax candles?
okay, well how are we representing that? Is that part of the polyomino? Like are we are we creating the candle itself? So like maybe the thing is that like the board is almost an empty space for polyominoes, but you've got this wick that's kind of running itself up and through. And so like the wick itself is randomly set as like a
Okay.
series of connected blocks, so it
Okay.
creates some challenge as to how to lay the polyomino.
I love that. That's such a good idea.
Well,
Okay.
I'm working off of you here. The polyomino thing was your idea. I'm just like, how would we like
Thanks.
figure it out from there?
Okay, so what's a cooperative element? Maybe we need to like throw some like randomness in it to make it slightly more difficult.
Well, it could be that we're making candles to satisfy customer orders, and so you've
Okay.
got like different people have different jobs, right? So one person can provide like colors, one person is focused on like effects maybe, and one person's focused on like getting the correct like overall scent profile, maybe.
Okay. Sure. I like that.
Yeah, so you have like different people can provide different things. You need everybody to sort of work independently to create like, oh, I need this piece from you, so I can put it through like almost like do you ever play Mechanica?
No, I don't think so.
Mechanica was interesting. It's an engine buildy kind of tile placement game about basically putting little robot vacuums together. And so you
Oh, okay.
put a robot vacuum in one end and then like different tiles would like duplicate it or like push it off to other things that might like enhance it or like produce certain types. And you're trying to produce certain types of robots to fulfill essentially orders. I feel like you
Okay.
could probably do something like that with the polyomino thing here. If you
Okay.
like maybe it's not the candles themselves that are the polyominoes, but it's an engine buildy game where you're working together to try and create a candle making engine.
I like that. And then maybe we could also like we also have like the customer orders could be like it has to be like this color, this scent, and
Mhm.
maybe it needs to like have four flower petals or it has
Mhm.
to have like four acorns or like whatever
It just
people
needs to
want.
be
And
full of glitter. Like it needs to erupt glitter when you burn it, so it gets like deep into your lungs, the like microplastics.
I feel like no one would want that because once glitter gets everywhere, like you're not getting that out.
True. Some people are into glitter. Like I'm not here to judge. I'm just like
Okay.
fair.
Um,
Okay.
okay, this
I
is
think
a
we
good.
got some good yeah, I think we got some good
Yeah.
ideas here. So I'd say that if we're thinking about it that way, then it sounds like it would be like an almost polyomino based engine building game where we try to build out a candle production machine to fulfill customer orders. I still like the idea that even the engine pieces could be scented, though. Something needs to be scented. Maybe the little minis are scent, like the little candle minis we produce are scented.
Okay,
Something needs to be scented.
so the polyominoes are not the candles anymore. They're the candle engine. What exactly is the candle engine, though?
Well, so it would be like things that like, okay, this stage gets the wax for the candle, this stage adds the wicks, and so
Okay.
like oh, I
Okay.
need like I know that my customers are going to want flower petals, so I've added like a polyomino to this engine that
Okay.
like will add flower petals to it, but it takes an extra turn to
Uh,
produce. And you're like,
okay.
oh no, I need faster candles. On my next turn, I'm going to add a piece of the engine that skips the flower petal engine, but it moves faster and can produce two candles a turn.
Okay. Falling off, like using that, then when we go throughout the engine and then our final piece is a candle, then I like that idea that we have candle minis, and then the final production, while we wipe the board clean essentially, will be a scented candle mini.
Right, that seems reasonable. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't not have minis. This is a board game.
No, obviously, you
We've
need
got
minis.
we've got an
But
economy.
but then can you make scented plastic? We'll figure it out. We'll
Yeah,
figure it
that's
out.
that's
We'll
a
figure it
that's
out.
a that's a later problem.
That's a later problem. Because we've got to make sure no one accidentally like actually starts to like light this like candles that we're providing, because then their game is kind of ruined.
I mean, we can't really stop people from burning their games.
Sure, sure. But we just want to make it so lifelike that we get blamed, being like, hey, I thought this was a real candle, so I burned it. Where's my money? I have a broken game. Because you know
Right. Well,
someone's
then we're
going to
putting
say
that on the
that.
box. So realistic. I accidentally lit my game on fire. You're like,
Okay,
it sells itself.
as an attorney, I'm gonna have to be on the back of the box in big letters. Do not burn your candle minis. We are not responsible for you burning your candle minis. I feel like that's a good
But
thing
you
to put on
might
there.
want to because they're going to be so realistic.
Sure. I feel like this is getting like opposing messages, but we can work with
Yeah,
it.
this is a problem we can edit out. We can edit out in post.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. So, yeah, if any of y'all watching this are looking to, market, design, develop, maybe even think more about a candle making game, we're here. So, hit us up.
Okay, can I just show you something? So I'm really into candles, as you can see, and I recently bought this new thing, and it's near me, so I'm just gonna grab it.
That's fine.
It's a USB rechargeable, because like I got tired of like accidentally burning my fingers trying to like light those like 3-wick candles, especially when like it's like close to the bottom.
Sure.
Because that's a real problem.
Wait, we're
So
using matches?
no, I was using a lighter,
Oh, okay.
like a
I
like
just,
a Bic
yeah, I
lighter
have.
or matches, whatever's
Oh,
near me.
I just have a Bic lighter that has a very like long lighter nozzle, so I've never experienced this.
So I do have one of those, but those can like eventually run out of fuel.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
got a USB rechargeable lighter, and you can lock it on and off so you don't actually burn yourself. And then I'm gonna turn it on, and then it just like sparks like right there, and it
Wild.
like it's bendy. So like if it's like a really like long candle, you could just like put it down in like that, and it will never run out because I just plug it in from right here into like a charger, and boom, it's ready.
Wild. I did
I
not
know.
even know this existed.
I love it so much. I know it's kind of bougie, but I like my candles, and this way I never burn my fingers again, and I never run out of like stuff to light my candles.
That's fair. That's neat.
Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you for
that.
letting me share that.
No, no, that's why we're here. We're here to talk about candles and maybe occasionally
Apparently.
board games, but who knows?
Yeah.
All right,
We did
so
invent a board game, so you know.
yeah, exactly. I do have a few additional questions though.
Sure. Let's do it.
So, some of the preliminary research I did points to you suggesting that you started modern gaming in 2017. So, what
Yeah.
games really got you into it, and how many of those do you still play now?
So one, good stalking skills. Like, good job. I think that's like on my BGG like profile. Like I have not edited that in a very long time. So I, like you mentioned earlier, like you grew up playing board games. I also grew up playing board games, like Scrabble, Taboo. Like my family loved Taboo, Life, and like games like that. Connect Four. But I didn't super really know that modern board games existed until 2017, and one of my best friends, like her boyfriend, introduced her to like modern board games, and she would like sometimes go to like local board game cons, and I'm like, what the hell is a board game convention? Looking back on it now, it's very funny. But for her birthday one that year, she wanted to go to a board game cafe and like get brunch and like play a board game. I'm like, of course, sounds good. And we played Small World, and I loved it so much. Like I loved it so much. I like was like, what is this? This is so different from like anything I've ever played. That was in February. My birthday is in April. So like for my birthday, I asked like my brother, I think, for Small World, and then on my actual birthday, I was waiting to go to the restaurant. You had to put like it was a long wait, so like let's get drinks at a board game bar near in DC, like near the restaurant. So we ended up playing Carcassonne because like the rule book wasn't very long,
That's
and
fair.
yeah, because like there were so many game options. I'm
That's
like,
a,
okay,
that's a real
yeah,
thing though, like just picking
yeah,
up games with short rule books.
yeah. And so we played, and I was like drinking wine and also teaching it to my brother because neither of us had obviously played. But it was so fun that I literally wine drunk like bought it on Amazon like that night, and then I bought Catan like a few weeks later because I was watching Supergirl and they were having a game night, and I'm like, what is this game? And I couldn't figure it out, so I like literally took a picture of the episode, sent it to my friend who I mentioned it from in February. She's like, oh, they're playing Catan. Also bought that, and like those are the three games that like dipped my toe into the hobby, and then now I'm here.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
fair. How many of them do you still play now?
So I play Catan a lot because my family really likes it. Do I really like it? But I play it a decent amount still. We have made a rule that when the robber, like when you roll a seven, you can't like negotiate about not having the robber placed on you because like that would lead to so many fights in my family and also just increase the playing time.
Hmm.
So we got rid of that rule, so it does make it a little bit easier to play. And we do play with all our cards face up,
Oh,
not face.
interesting.
Yeah.
We always played we essentially played like disarmament Catan, or
Okay. What's
basically you could move the robber to basically any unoccupied spot, and
okay?
people were like, that's fine, yeah, that's fine, moving the robber's fine. As soon as you moved it to a spot where someone had a thing and you stole from them, basically the collective ire of the game turned on you. So we just had this like mutual non-aggression pact between all of us that was like, I won't rob you if you all collectively won't rob me. And people were like, that's fine. But then someone
Yeah.
inevitably would break it, and we're like, all right, well, time to mess this person's entire life up.
Well, eventually it gets hard because like you have like
Hmm.
most people will have settlements like throughout like half the game, like everywhere. So it's
Right,
kind
and
of
then
like
you
hard
then
to
you
avoid.
apologize, and you're like, I'm so sorry, I have no choice. And they're like, no, I understand. Well, you'll see.
What does that mean to apologize? Like I don't understand. There's none of that when we play Catan,
Relatable
unfortunately.
content. So what we do is we'll occasionally have someone like holding their cards, and they'll like be like, "Oops," and they'll accidentally drop a knight face up, and like, "Oh no, that fell out of my hand right before you were planning on robbing me. My mistake," and we'll just put it back. It's it's a weird energy.
That is interesting. We don't play Small World as much, but we still play Carcassonne a fairly decent amount. We do play with a three tile variant, so where we have always have three tiles. It helps subdue the feelings of people not enjoying the fact that like, oh, I got a shitty tile and like you didn't.
Hmm.
I've noticed like that helps with those feelings.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me, I play with a lot of the expansions whenever I play, and so I'm always just like, this is a weird tile, and so there's a lot more like weird tiles in play. So we play the one cycle. Like with the catapult, you're like, there's 12 garbage tiles in this game that will
Yeah.
turn the game into a farce.
You
I do love
mentioned
the catapult.
earlier. Yeah, I've never played with the catapult. You mentioned earlier
It's
that you like the
bad.
expansions. I have one of them. I don't remember which one, but I don't think I've incorporated it yet, but I should.
They're all
It's still yeah.
they're all interesting in different ways, except for the
Yeah.
catapult, which is terrible. I love it because it's bad, but it
Okay,
is.
so you still like it then.
Have you ever been playing Carcassonne? Sorry, have you ever been playing Carcassonne and thought, I wish this were a dexterity game, but for no clear reason?
No, no, I don't think
Okay, then you may not
so.
you may not enjoy the catapult.
Okay.
It adds some
Um,
mechanics.
I remember when I was playing Carcassonne, it was just like the idea that you were building the board in front of you was so like unique.
Hmm.
I had never played a game like that before. And also it's so simple. Like like okay. It's simple rule set, but you can make it as difficult as you want. Like our
Right.
games now, we're a very competitive family if you haven't like picked that up when I was talking about Catan. But like it is cutthroat. Like, oh, you're building a huge ass castle? I'm gonna like add on to your castle because you didn't make sure all your sides were covered. Oh, I'm gonna add on to your road. Oops, I just placed another meeple and I just took all your hard work away from you. That happens a lot when we play Carcassonne.
Hateful, but fair.
Hmm.
So you're
Very
mentioning
hateful.
playing a lot of games with your family. What are your sort of go-to games that you play with your family? Like since we're all kind of, at least I'm sort of stuck at home. We're all kind of stuck at home largely. So yeah,
Yeah.
any games in that space.
Well, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like my family really likes Splendor. We really like Istanbul. I really like Finca, and my family likes it enough that we play it a decent amount. Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders gets played a lot. And usually, like when we're playing Seven Wonders, we play it like 2 or 3 times.
So is
So,
Finca usually like top of mind for you when you're deciding what games to play?
well, it's because because I live with my family and like who is hanging out with other people right now. So I had taught it to like they don't really like
Mm-hmm.
learning new games. So it's just a game I taught them and they're like, "Hey, we like it. Let's play it." And at a certain point you're just like, "Okay, we'll play it."
So would you say you think about it a lot?
Yeah. Good job. Good job.
Anyways,
Good
um,
job.
thank you. So I talked a little bit earlier in the show about games that we've been playing remotely while we've been able to meet up in person. So, for instance, you and I played Castles of Tuscany together. But have there been any games that you've been really impressed by remote implementations of, or services that you've really enjoyed using for remote play?
So I haven't done as much remote playing as like you have, but I have been doing a lot more Jackbox
Mm.
because it's easy to just like hop on a Zoom call, share your screen, and like play with friends. I've also been doing a lot of Kahoot, which is you can make your own trivia and like it's been happening like a lot around people's birthdays. We'll make like a trivia based on that person and like all your guests will play and it's actually really fun. Let's see. And I have played a few games on Board Game Arena. I think that's one of my favorite ways to do it because you have to play the game correctly and the rules, which is like a big
Oh
deal.
man, yeah.
I do wish there was an undo button. That is my main complaint for a lot of
I think
online board
Yukata
games.
has one, as long as you don't end your
Okay.
turn.
Okay. Good to know. I don't think I've used Yukata yet. I'll have to check it out.
I was playing Hadara on it, and it's great implementation, but I definitely made a mistake, didn't realize it, and ended my
Yeah.
turn. And I was like,
Yeah.
foiled again.
I think I made a mistake when we were playing Castle of Tuscany. And I'm like, no, like oh, like if it was real life, I could undo it, but
Right.
you can't online, and that like irks me a teeny tiny bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Um,
I didn't make any mistakes.
okay, okay, okay. Hey, do you remember that time I beat you by like 15 points when we played? Oh my god, I can't. How do you pronounce that word game again?
Well, I
Oh,
guess if you can't remember the name of it, then it probably didn't happen.
okay.
Nami.
I mean, there you go.
I'm a good sport. Most sometimes. Uh, so as you've been doing a bit more content creation, have you noticed your taste in games changing, or has it maintained sort of the same path?
I've noticed that I've always loved medium weight Euro games, medium to light, but I have noticed my tendency going even more into that genre. Is that genre? Is that called a genre? I don't know. Only because only because I started content creating a lot of it in the pandemic. So my primary gaming partners are my family and like I like in this pandemic I did play The Gallerist by Vital Lacerda and I'm just like I could never get my family to play this like in a million years. And
It is
I
a
didn't
fairly light Euro.
yeah, yeah, sure. And
Too light.
and I don't know if I enjoyed playing it. because it's just like I can see why people like it, but I don't know, like I don't want to play a board game anymore for 3 hours, which seems wrong to say, but
Now you're
yeah,
valid.
yeah, thank you.
Like,
But I do think heavy games are nice, and it's like it depends the people who you play with, but the 60 minute to 90-minute like time frame is like my perfect ideal time frame, and like games that like I feel like have a lot of depth but are not long are my niche at the
mhm.
moment.
Yeah, that's fair. I tend to be in the like less than 60 range, but now especially that I'm like since I'm only playing probably like one-ish games a day, I'm kind of more like, well, if I'm gonna play one game and that's gonna be it, I don't really care if it's like 2 hours or like
Yeah.
20 minutes. So I've been playing a few longer games. So I think the longest one I played was Dominations over there, and that was a with the like Tabletopia penalty of I suddenly have ham hands and can't like manipulate anything on the screen. It took us
Oh,
maybe a little bit over
yeah.
3 hours.
Ooh, that's long. Yeah.
Yeah, it's large.
I do think playing online definitely extends like how long a game is. I remember playing I think it was God Loves Dinosaurs on TTS, and I just spent like 5 minutes like clicking my pieces into place. Just I'm like, no, it really bothers me if they're not like fully like touching each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, my
that
problem
wouldn't
with
be a problem in
TTS is
real life.
always that like I get so tempted to use the scale functionality
Okay.
where you can just like right click on a piece and just start jamming the scale button when it's not my turn. So like someone else is like doing their
Yeah.
own thing on their board and I'm just like slowly increasing the size of all their pieces. So inevitably they go back and be like, why is my meeple so large? And I'm like, I don't know.
That's hilarious. That is a perfect troll because no one gets hurt, and then like it's like, when is this person gonna notice this ginormous
It's
piece?
incredibly minor but deeply funny once
Yeah,
once the meeple is like, like yay big, someone's just like, wait a minute.
that's really funny.
Oh, I think it's hilarious. But anyway, so what got you into content creation? Sort of what was your biggest challenge getting into content creation?
Um, so how did I get into content creation? So Anna Maria, she used to be the editor of Girls' Game Shelf. Um, we were friends like long before she was in like working for with GGS. And like she was my primary, like her and her husband were my primary like gaming like group. And so we would always like have game nights, game days, and we would just very naturally like debrief the games we played, broke it down. It's just something we did. Like that's a lot of gamers do that.
Yeah.
Um, so she's like, "Hey, do you want to like come write for GGS?" Because like I was kind of doing that like verbally or like in a text or whatever. She's like, "Why don't you come write for us?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I will." And it kind of just like snowballed from there. Then like I started doing panels and then Twitch streaming, and yeah, like that's kind of like how it happened, to be honest.
Fair. Were there any like challenges getting into it, or was it just sort of like the process of doing it?
The challenges were like I found most of my challenges were in Twitch streaming, like learning new software and also like streaming and like talking to people in the chat, talking to your guests, and just like, this stuff is going to be on the internet and like being comfortable with that. Like, I am like mostly okay with public speaking, but like, it is kind of nerve wracking to like start streaming and like put yourself out there for like however many people are watching you. So just like breaking down that like insecurity and like getting the self confidence to do that is still a work in progress.
It's a process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so speaking of Girls Game Shelf, you've kind of done a little bit of everything for them, yeah? So you did like videos, you did writing, like what would you say were the highlights of your time there?
I loved the panels that we've done together. Um, my one and only panel, which like in person panel, was at PAX U last year, and we all played werewolf together. And
Mm.
Kiki had this like um, dinosaur like puppet, and it was just incredibly entertaining. And we were playing werewolf, and we were like interacting with the audience, and it was so much fun. And it was my first time meeting a lot of the members. It was my first time meeting Michelle. It was my first time meeting Kiki. First time meeting Paula and Jackie, and just I had to all see them online, and to meet them in person was really incredible. And then when we had Shelf of Palooza earlier this year, we did another girls game shelf like virtual panel, and we played Blank Slate. And I think, yeah, we did post it on our YouTube, so I really recommend checking it out because it was just so much fun. And we played with the audience, so like we weren't just trying to like find words that match with each other, we were trying to find words that match with the audience, and there was like 30, 40 people in the audience, so like it actually made the game kind of hard because you're like matching up with only one person when you're playing with like 40 people is like almost impossible.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
did it a few times.
Hey,
So that was nice. Yeah.
that's
And
excellent.
so those are my highlights because, a huge reason why I loved GGS is like the other women and like just being a part of a group like of those women. It's just so like on the panels being like hanging out with them, like hanging out with people. It's just really fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, PAX U, I think, was just a. I've been to a number of game conventions, and like, I appreciated how well it navigated the like. At Gen Con, I'm usually running around with my hair on fire because I've got
Yeah.
like 40 meetings that I scheduled because I think I hate future me, and that's fine. Like, I'm just like, oh, that
Yeah.
guy's a jerk. But yeah, so PAX U was a lot more chill, and I think I really appreciate a lot of the like when I say professionalism, it's not because I mean to imply that other board game conventions are unprofessional, but there
Hmm.
were a lot of like good structured pathways for a lot of things like media stuff. Like having a media room where I could drop my coat was
Hmm.
great because it was like, I don't know,
Yeah.
20 degrees. I had to wear like a long coat for purely warmth reasons. And like when I would
It
get
was
in, I was
cool.
just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so not having to wear
Also,
that
we
across.
met at PAX U, so like I know that was a highlight of
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
trip.
I'm glad it
Yeah.
was a highlight for you. I also enjoyed it.
I thought it was a highlight for you, but okay.
We'll let the listeners decide who said
Okay.
what.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, the panels were fun. I really liked a lot of how it was organized. I liked the exhibit hall a fair bit, but that was mostly because like Ayako was presenting there for Big Cat Games,
Yeah,
and a
I
lot of
got to meet her. It was so cool.
Ayako is superb.
We
Just
I forgot. I think I was playing with Anne Maria, but we played the matching game where you're supposed to, like, I think you like it's like a takeout menu essentially, but
yeah,
like
like
pictures
catalog.
on. Yes, we played catalog together and we were so good. It was
Yeah,
so fun.
catalogs, a lot of them. I think my favorite out of the games that Ayako has shown me has been either Hictorune or Seventh Night. I don't know if you've played those.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So Hictorune, you're wizards who are traveling around the countryside solving like people's problems with your magic.
Okay.
And so you have to cast spells out of your spell book to do it. And so you'll flip open your spell book,
Okay.
you'll leaf to the correct page, and then you'll like essentially pull the magic out of your spell book to cast a spell. The way that you
Okay.
do this is you have a deck of cards that you have placed in a pyramid shape. So sort of this like
Okay.
you swoop the deck out.
Sure.
You have to reach in one-handed, grab as many cards as you think you can use without the pyramid toppling.
I think I saw that on the display. That's very interesting. It's a very like careful dexterity game.
It is nightmarishly hard, but very
Yeah.
fun. Seventh Night is more like the like Battle Line or Hanamakoji,
Mhm.
like the
Yeah.
two-player tug of war. It's
Yeah.
that, but you play cards, and the value on the card is how much control you have over that spot. But it's
Okay.
also how many spaces you move the pawn that determines where your opponent can play next.
Okay.
And so it's this like it's essentially it's a dance, really. Like it's a delicate
Yeah.
dance of like you moving this pawn to spots where your opponent can only
Yeah.
play cards to set you up to take the things that you need. It's for a surprisingly like low complexity game, it's very elegant, and it's actually probably my favorite example of that like genre of games.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. I do enjoy those games like Battle Line. Shot and Totten is also kind of
Mhm.
similar to that. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are
it's
great games.
very much in that part of town. I really like just like the restrictions are good, the movement is good. There's a very satisfying moment where you can push an opponent into a spot where they're unable to play a card.
Yeah.
And that's essentially like you don't win, but you essentially do because you get
Yeah.
to discard a card from their hand.
Ooh,
And
nice.
that's usually you discard like the card that's most helpful to them. It's a tough game, but it's very fun.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big fan. Yeah, I just overall really liked PAX U. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, you know, everything
I
will like
know. I
finally get
know.
back in that.
I think PAX U is the biggest con I've ever been to. I've never been to Origins or Gen Con. But I've been to PAX U twice now. One just as like a regular gamer, once as like a content creator. Both were incredible. And I appreciate that it doesn't feel suffocating. Even when
Right.
you're in the vendor room, there's like a lot of people, but it's so big that I don't feel like I'm about to be trampled. And I love the great like the area where they teach you how to play. Like, those people are on top of their shit. Like they teach you the game and like they're fast about it and they're like very informative and I know I really appreciate it. Like I feel like that they have people who are literally just there to teach you cool games.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. I will say the
Yeah.
Gen Con is a lot.
Yeah, I've heard
Like
I've heard stories. I think I want to go once just to experience it, but like I've heard kind of like scary things about it. So,
it's I have enjoyed it, but when I go, I have a plan, right? Like my days are allocated out. I know basically at any given time where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing. And the
yeah.
most important thing was that I think Gen Con was really a period of growth for me as an individual because it taught me that I can no longer like stay up until 2 a.m. without consequences. Because I'd be at Gen Con like so I think my one of my Gen Con highlights was I had a prototype copy of Spy Club,
Okay.
the Foxtrot game, which is superb if you haven't played it. It's a cooperative like Clue Kids Solve Mysteries game, and it takes pieces from as you beat certain challenges. The
Hmm.
next game incorporates pieces from that challenge
Oh,
into
that's
its next.
cool.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I would say underrated, but that's just because I rated it very highly, and I don't feel like it. I doesn't matter. But so it was me, uh, Carla and Nick from Weird Draft Games and Jeremy from Game Geek Ninja, and I was just like, okay, we're gonna do a full campaign,
Of the
five
whole game.
games.
Oh my
We're gonna
God.
play
Okay.
five consecutive. It was like 10 p.m. Like it's fine. Each game's an hour. Um, phew. It was 2 a.m.
Okay.
Nick was asleep on the table. Carla was physically present, and that is it.
Yep.
And I was like woozy. Jeremy was wide awake, bless him. And I'm just sort of like, Jeremy, for the love of God, you're the only person who is awake enough to solve this puzzle. Like, it's the last game. I'm losing it. Carla's elsewhere.
Yeah.
We need you to get us. It was very fun.
To
Just
to Carla's credit, it's 2 a.m. Like that's
oh
late.
yeah, this is not a dig at Carla in the slightest. I just remember very specifically like Carla had like a hand of cards and she was just kind of like moving the cards around every couple of minutes, just like moves a card here, nods, moves the
Yeah.
card back, and it was very much just like a well, like she's out as well.
I have played board games like thinky board games like late at night sometimes and like or like we'll start it a little bit later and then like I'm just like why am I playing a board game at 1 a.m. like my brain is like not processing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, so have you been to BGG Con?
No, unfortunately not, but I've heard it's like mostly like focused on like playing games like more than like
Yeah,
a vendor con. Yeah, it sounds really fun.
yeah, I think the main strength is its library there, but that's definitely a place where you can get a little bit dangerous with playing games too late
Yeah.
at night. So like I was playing I think it was the year Custom Heroes came out. I've
Okay.
always been really into like the card crafting games, I think it's a cool
Mhm.
system. But I think Tony Miller and I were playing it until maybe 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my
Like
God.
just kept looping on Custom Heroes. We're like, yeah, it's Custom Heroes. We can just like do another round of it. It's Custom
Yeah.
Heroes.
Of course, of course.
I all I remember is that some friends were really interested in Mystery of the Temples from Emperor S4,
Okay.
and it was about 10ish at that point, and I still hadn't quite slept. And
Like
so,
10 a.m.
yes, I taught the
Okay.
game apparently well. I my memories of this is a little bit hazy.
It's like
Uh,
blacked out from lack of sleep, essentially.
and so all I know is that I was like, does everyone have the rules down? And they're all like, yes. And I was like, great. And then my head just hit the table and I was out for the entire game. Like I just just passed out on the
Didn't
spot.
even make it to your room or
Nope.
anything.
Just
Nope.
slept.
Okay.
Like no one wanted to wake me up, so they just kind of let me sleep there. I was
But like
fine after I
poor
slept for
Eric.
like. It was a
I
good. I love Mystery of the Temples.
I actually had tickets to Geekway to the West for this summer, or yeah,
Mm,
the summer. Um, it was like it's also like a very player focused con,
right.
and so again, Anna Maria and Ben, who are my primary gaming people, before they left me and moved to Seattle. But we won't talk about that now. But so like they like lived in St. Louis for a really long time. And so they always like rave about the food and the con. So I'm like, this year I'm like, why not? Like, yeah, like, well, we can go together. And so I was like excited for like just like 5 days, like nonstop gaming, where like no meetings and like apparently like they have a game night where you like dress up in like gowns and play games and like that sounded really fun. Um, Also, like they are very like liberal on like the drinking and gaming part, which is also sometimes fun too, because like some cons are like very no doing that, and it just seemed like a really like chill con, and I'm very sad that everything was
Yeah,
canceled this
this is the
year.
year I was. This is the year I was gonna do it all. I was finally gonna like have the dream and do like Origins, Gen Con, and then just figure something out with BGG versus PAX U.
Yeah.
Yes, that didn't happen.
Mm-mm.
My current goal is to eventually hit up Tokyo Game Market.
That would be so fun. Like I was supposed to go to Japan this year, and I like was trying to time it around Tokyo Game Market. It just didn't work out timing wise. But I'm like, you know what? I know I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna go back just for that because it just
Mhm.
seems so cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's there's a lot of it's just like indie designers pushing out like
Yeah.
one or two games. So I think actually I think I have it here. So like this is so when you're talking about games from that you play with Ayako, did you ever play Jikure Mie?
No, I think we just played that one catalog, the game catalog.
This is
Yeah.
the same studio. Jikure Mie is basically you have like a painting and
Okay.
you put a frame over one piece of the painting, and then everyone else has to play a mood card that they think matches the mood of the subject or like why you would have played it that way. And then you
Okay.
play your own mood card, and then the people who are correct get points. It's
Okay.
very cute. It's very interesting. This one's called Zen Tiles. This is Zen
Okay.
Tiles Basic. Um, but it's basically a almost a like meditative like check-in experience as a game.
Oh, okay.
And so it lets you place tiles on a timeline to correspond to like when you felt that emotion during the day.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And you can play it with other people. So what you can do is I think you can I haven't quite finished the rules for the
Yeah.
multiplayer version, but it's around you can give people like a statement of fact as to like it was raining. And then you give them one of three mood options, and they have to guess what emotion you felt at like what time of the day.
So you mentioned there's multiplayer rules. Does that mean you can play this solo?
Yes, the original Zen Tiles is called Zen Tiles Solo. It's actually maybe like yay
Uh,
big, and it's just that you
so
every
is it
day
okay?
you
So it's like
play
to
it.
help you get you in touch with your emotions. You're
Yeah,
saying
yeah. It's
that's
it's
very
like
cool.
yeah, it's you just play it every day. I tended to play it, so I was playing it for a review, so I was playing it usually at night, so I could like
Okay.
settle my brain before the end of the day. So I play it at night, and you just draw emotions out of the stack, and then you put them on the timeline as to when you felt that emotion during the day. So you get this like really interesting like sort of almost curve of your emotional state.
Yeah.
So if it was a positive emotion, a positive instance of that, you'd put it above. And there are things that like you can have like lonely, but it's positive because you're like, ah, yeah, like I'm a little lonely because I'm reminiscing about a good time that I had with my friends. And
Mm.
then there's things that are like negative and they would go below the timeline. So you actually get this like very visual curve to it.
So when I had a Chipotle burrito, I was happy. When I finished my Chipotle burrito, I was sad.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. No, actually, that sounds very cool. I feel like it's a very good way to like get in touch with their emotions, and honestly, like sometimes you need that, especially like right now where we're all kind
Yeah,
of
it's
stuck.
it's a very the whole set is hitting Kickstarter in I think early February. So I was chatting with the designer in a couple emails, and yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to playing the multiplayer version when I have a little bit more when I can basically con some of my friends into playing like an emotional game.
That sounds real interesting. I would play that with you. I feel like that like it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get in touch with your emotions. So like figuring out like times when you're happy and sad, like that would be very interesting.
Yeah, the solo version is, I think, like, not to get into like the is it a game taxonomy, but I think of it more as like a meditative, a gamified tool,
Yeah.
which is helpful because it gives you it presents you with an emotion and just says when did you feel this today.
Hmm.
The multiplayer version is a little bit more interesting because it's like more about like trying to gauge how people feel about certain things, and
Hmm.
it has similar energy to like Catalog or Chikorée.
Oh, that is cool. That sounds very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Very different.
yeah, I like a lot of games that tend to be in the more like emotional sense, like how do we like feel or how do we process how we're feeling,
Hmm.
and I think that that's cool.
For sure.
Yeah. So I know we veered in a variety of different directions, but
Yes.
since we talked a little bit about Girls Game Shelf, since the finale of Girls Game Shelf, the various creators have sort of moved in different directions, do their own stuff, and I know you've been doing a lot, but I know people are likely interested in what you're going to be doing now. So can you give us an update on like what you've been doing, where you've been doing it, and what to expect from Benita in the future?
So mostly what I've been doing is appearing on, guest streams. I realized like how much I love Twitch since I started doing it for GGS, and so like I've been doing a lot of guest streams on Amanda Panda streams, and that's been really fun. And
And it's great.
specifically, yeah, she's great. Specifically, Amanda After Dark, which is just like her M-rated stream, which is just very on brand for me. So I always have my White Claw ready, and we're gonna do a like a New Year's Eve almost. It's on December 30th stream, and I'm debuting my new onesie, and I'm very excited about it. It's Luna from Sailor Moon, and it's so cute. Just in other guest streams, like I've been on Ian's stream, like with you
Yeah,
actually.
Ian's been doing some incredible
Yes,
work. Like
I'm
just
so impressed how he has incorporated the games and like the way like we did a fake artist goes to New York today, and the amount of work it took to set up that stream is just so impressive because it looks so good on screen, but I know like behind the screen like how much work he put into it. It's very cool.
yeah, I hope that publishers see it and they start like actually just like reaching out to Ian to sort of do that for some of their titles because I know that like our game of Rosetta was super fun.
And it was just
Granted, I love
impressive.
Rosetta, so I'm
Yeah.
like an easy sell.
And like I know he recently did Monstrosity, and like
Hmm.
that was really good too. So it's just, like he's doing a great job, and that's been really impressive. Let's see. And then I am debuting my Twitch channel. I'm going to like early next year. So I'm really excited about that. I'm going to veer a little away from board games. I
Yes.
will play some, but I also will be playing some video games. Just I think I like video games. Like pandemic made me like video games. So like I want to do some of that too.
Right.
I actually am my first game I'm going to stream is oh my god, I always forget the title. It's the lawyer video game. What is it
Phoenix
called?
Wright, Ace Attorney.
Yes, that one. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm here for
I
you.
thanks, I appreciate it. I think multiple people told me like, "Oh my God, Benita, you should play it. Like, you should do it." So it'll be fun. I'm sure it's gonna be not very realistic, but I think that's why it's gonna
No,
be
it's
fun.
extremely realistic. Most
Oh
of the
yeah.
game is actually you writing briefs for the courtroom.
Ooh,
Yeah.
maybe I don't want to play. No,
So there's a
I've
whole
seen.
discovery phase. It's extremely tedious.
So I don't do most discovery, so it would be kind of different. I'm an estate planning attorney, so I don't do discovery. But yeah, so I'm excited about that. And then just like I have a few guest appearances lined up for the next few months, and then I am working on a super secret project that I really can't like divulge any more information than super secret project. But I'm going to talk about that and debut that in spring 2021. So like starting to work on that now, laying the groundwork for that, and I'm very excited for that as well.
Well, we're really excited to hear about it.
Thanks.
So yeah, if you're looking forward to that, look forward to that in spring 2021. So okay, well, where can we find you online?
Um, I'm literally at Beneta, BENEETA _K on Twitter, on TikTok. on Twitch and Instagram. I was lucky to be able to get my handle the same, like on all my social media platforms.
Yeah, every time I think about social media handles, I'm just reminded that What's Eric Playing is 16 characters, which really has just like clowned me on Twitter.
That is a very
Uh,
long profile handle.
so frustrated. Anyways, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank
Thank
you
you for
so much for
asking
coming out
me.
tonight. Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to seeing what you're working on next, and
Thanks.
can't wait to see more of you on Twitch.
Well, thank you for having me, and this was so fun. I really like the backdrop you have, even if you bound yourself to your room.
Yeah, literally can't leave.
Why would you want to?
I am so hungry.
It's fair. Well, thanks again.
Yes, absolutely. See you next time.
Bye.
Well, that's all the time we've got for you tonight. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Late Night Table Talk.